It's official that the RV VIN scandal just blew up, and dealers are in full-blown panic mode. Coaches worth hundreds of thousands are being seized, titles frozen, and insurance voided overnight.
New information tonight on a scheme our Call 6 Investigates team has been tracking about VIN cloning.
Why? Missing VINs. The one thing that makes your rig legal. Manufacturers say it's nothing, but inspectors say it's years of neglect. Now lenders, dealers, and owners are all scrambling to cover the damage. And if you own a late-model RV, you need to pay attention. The border breakdown. It started with what should have been a routine border crossing. A husband and wife were hauling their luxury motorhome south, a coach valued at just over $1 million, when customs officers noticed something off. They searched the vehicle's paperwork, looked at the frame, and realized the chassis carried no permanently stamped vehicle identification number. Within hours, their trip was over. The motorhome was impounded, and a civil penalty of $660,000 was issued under federal import law. Their attorney later confirmed that inspectors cited failure to meet VN placement under Title 49 Code of Federal Regulations, Section 565. For the couple, it meant a nightmare of legal bills, storage fees, and public embarrassment. For the rest of the RV community, it raised a chilling question. If a missing VIN could freeze a $1 million coach, what about the rigs sitting in driveways across America? Dealers, owners, and even insurers began scrambling for answers, and the first photos of the seized coach started circulating online. Proof that this was not a rumor. The more people looked into it, the more they discovered that one missing number could drain the value of an entire vehicle. Why a missing VIN destroys value? Every RV on the road is supposed to carry a 17-character VIN permanently marked on the frame, not just printed on a label. That number is the DNA of the vehicle, linking it to recalls, service records, insurance coverage, and resale eligibility. Without it, a bank cannot issue a loan, an insurer cannot write a policy, and a buyer cannot register the title. Federal law, spelled out in Section 565, requires final manufacturers to stamp that identifier in a tamper-resistant spot, usually on the steel near the driver's seat or undercarriage. When it is absent, the RV is legally unverified property. In practice, that turns a $200,000 motorhome into scrap worth a fraction of its book value. Dealers cannot take it on trade, auction houses will not touch it, and a private buyer risks losing registration altogether. Some owners report instant depreciation of 50 to 70% after a failed inspection. It is not drama, it is math. A missing VIN makes lenders nervous, insurers cautious, and buyers disappear. But understanding why those numbers vanished requires going back to the factory floor, where responsibility often shifted faster than paperwork could keep up. If you've already checked your VIN, hit the thumbs up. If you're finding this warning useful, drop a comment with your model year. Let's see how far this issue spreads. From factory floor to paper trail. Every RV begins as a bare chassis built by a supplier, Freightliner, Spartan, or Ford, each issuing a base VN for the frame. When that chassis arrives at a coach manufacturer, the law says the final assembler must verify, stamp, and certify that same VIN on the finished product. It sounds simple, yet in practice, confusion rules. Many factories rely on stickers or subcontractor labels instead of hard stamps. The assembler assumes the chassis maker handled compliance. The chassis maker assumes the assembler did. That gap, sometimes called the sign-off gap, leaves coaches rolling out of production lines missing the legally required mark. Inspectors reviewing seized units found inconsistencies in serial placement, sometimes with only the last 5 digits scratched into paint, useless under federal standards. It is a small shortcut with massive fallout. It shifts liability from factory to owner the moment the rig leaves the lot. The border seizure exposed that no one was truly verifying final compliance, and regulators are now re-examining thousands of VIN certifications issued after 2017. Once those findings hit the internet, the quiet whispers inside the industry turned into full-scale outrage from owners who realized they might be next. Outrage ignites online. Within days of the story breaking, forums and Facebook groups filled with photos of VN plates that looked suspiciously temporary, paper tags peeling, digits misaligned, stickers fading. Retired inspectors began uploading copies of their old compliance checklists, highlighting where VINs were supposed to be stamped in steel. Advocacy channels hosted live streams showing side-by-side comparisons of compliant and missing plates. Owners of motorhomes built between 2017 and 2020 began crawling under their rigs with flashlights, searching for numbers that often were not there. Some found partial digits, others blank metal. One viewer summed it up: "I paid 6 figures for a ghost." The outrage was not just about missing stamps. It was about trust. If a company could forget to mark its own product, what else could it ignore? As screenshots spread, pressure mounted on manufacturers to respond. The first statement came from a major builder claiming full compliance, but by then, proof had already gone viral. And as the evidence multiplied, what started as a single border incident was about to expose a nationwide manufacturing failure that could cost owners and the industry millions. The corporate denial loop. Viewers comparing the press release and the government citation could see the contradiction in black and white. The company said nothing missing, but the evidence file said identifier absent. Corporate spokespeople blamed clerical errors and pointed to supplier confusion, promising to review documentation. What they never mentioned was that inspectors physically checked the chassis and found no engraved numbers at all. For seasoned owners, the denial sounded familiar. They had heard it before when warranties failed or recalls lagged. It was corporate reflex, not accountability. The difference this time is scale. Hundreds of coaches built after 2017 may share the same silent frame. The proof is no longer hidden. It is in public filings and inspection photos anyone can download. And while manufacturers denied, the dealers on the front line kept selling, pressured by banks and financing contracts that could not wait for the truth. Dealer silence and floor plan pressure. Behind every showroom smile is a stack of financing contracts called floor plan loans. Dealers borrow millions to keep RVs on their lots, paying interest every month until each unit sells. When sales slow, those payments bleed profit fast. That pressure explains why many dealerships ignored whispers about missing VINs. Halting sales would mean breaching agreements with lenders who expect repayment every 30 or 60 days. Several sales managers admitted privately that they kept moving inventory even after seeing VIN irregularities. One described it bluntly: "If we stop, the bank owns us by next month." The compliance risk seemed distant. The floor plan bills were immediate, so paperwork was rushed, buyers were reassured, and units kept rolling out. By the time the border seizure hit the news, thousands of non-compliant rigs were already titled and financed. Now those same dealers face refund demands from angry owners and questions from auditors who want to know why they kept selling. It is a classic squeeze. Financial pressure above, legal risk below, and customers caught in the middle. But the real shortcut happened long before a salesman handed over keys. It began on the production line, where stickers replaced steel and minutes replaced quality. Sticker VINs and missing metal. Inside the assembly plants, time equals money. Workers build dozens of units daily, and every extra step costs margin. Instead of engraving VINs on metal, some factories printed adhesive labels or thin foil plates with serial numbers pre-typed. Technically, it satisfied internal tracking, but legally, it failed federal durability standards that require tamper-resistant stamping. Several owner photos show stickers curling at the edges or peeling off after a few months of heat and vibration. In one inspection, agents found residue where a label had been removed entirely. Plant insiders have confirmed that the shortcut saved an estimated 2 minutes per unit, an insignificant gain compared to the cost of today's recalls and legal exposure. The irony is brutal. To save pennies on production, they risked thousands in penalties. Federal law mandates that VINs must withstand corrosion and physical tampering for the life of the vehicle, not just survive the warranty period. When you lose that stamp, you lose identity, and once identity is lost, every connected system, title, recall, insurance, fails. The proof is literal metal missing from the frame. Whether that decision was a careless oversight or a calculated gamble is now the question circling courtrooms and law offices across the country. Fraud or sloppiness, the legal line. Lawyers now argue over motive. Some claim the omissions were simple mistakes born born of chaotic assembly lines and vendor confusion. Others say it was deliberate cost-cutting, a corporate choice to skip verification knowing most buyers would never crawl under their rigs. Class action firms in 3 states are already collecting owner affidavits, estimating damages per unit between $5,000 and $25,000 once resale loss and legal fees are included. One attorney compared it to the odometer scandals of the 1990s, technical violations that became consumer fraud once companies ignored warnings. Regulators are waiting for clarity before issuing broad recalls, but private suits are moving faster. Manufacturers want to label it sloppiness. Plaintiffs call it deception. The outcome determines everything. If courts decide intent existed, refunds and buybacks could follow, forcing companies to repurchase entire model years. That verdict would echo through the entire RV industry, rewriting compliance practices overnight. For now, the paperwork piles up, and the silence from executives grows louder, leaving owners to wonder which side of the legal line their coach sits on. And as the cases advance, the next wave of fallout will not come from boardrooms. It will hit the people paying loans on rigs they can no longer sell, families in financial limbo. For owners caught in the middle, the scandal is not abstract, it is financial quicksand. Imagine owing $600,000 on a motorhome you can no longer sell or register. That is the situation many owners now face. Monthly payments, insurance premiums, and storage fees continue, even as resale value collapses to near zero. Some have parked their rigs for months, afraid to drive them across state lines. One couple shared that they pay almost $4,000 each month between the loan and insurance for a coach now considered legally non-existent. The emotional toll runs parallel to the financial one. Frustration, anger, and disbelief that something as simple as a missing VIN could erase years of savings. For retirees who plan to travel, it feels like their future was repossessed. They did everything right, paid in full, insured properly, followed maintenance schedules, and still ended up with property that regulators treat as contraband. The silence from manufacturers only deepens the uncertainty. Without acknowledgement or guidance, owners are left to carry the debt alone, and when they turn to insurers for help, they discover the problem runs deeper than registration. It reaches into every contract tied to that missing number. Insurance and lending blackouts. Insurance companies rely on VINs to price risk, process claims, and verify coverage. When that number fails to match federal databases, policies instantly lose validity. One redacted memo from a national insurer confirmed what many feared: coverage void due to unverified VIN integrity. That single line is devastating. It means accidents, thefts, or fires are no longer covered, leaving owners liable for total losses. Lenders respond the same way, flagging loans as non-collateralized because they cannot trace the asset's identity. Refinancing becomes impossible, and buyers trying to trade or sell are told their titles are frozen. For many, that is the moment reality hits. The missing VIN is not just paperwork, it is the foundation of ownership. A few savvy owners have found temporary workarounds, such as independent verification through state highway patrols or applying for assigned VINs, but those options take months and do not restore full market value. The financial system treats unverified vehicles like stolen goods, and once that tag appears, the stigma is permanent. While owners struggle with banks and insurers, the dealers who sold those rigs are now facing a reckoning of their own inside courtrooms across the country. Dealers facing court summons. What began as a consumer complaint has evolved into a legal storm. State attorneys general in at least 3 jurisdictions have opened investigations into whether dealers violated deceptive trade statutes by selling vehicles with incomplete identification. The penalties are steep, up to $10,000 per unit plus restitution. Early filings show buyers demanding refunds for rigs purchased as recently as 2024. Dealers argue they were unaware of the defects and relied on manufacturer paperwork. But judges rarely accept ignorance as a defense. Class action firms now bundle cases, claiming systemic negligence across multiple dealer networks. The immediate consequence is paralysis in the used market. Industry analysts already note declining auction bids for late-model coaches, some down as much as 30% from last year. For smaller dealerships operating on thin margins, 1 or 2 lawsuits could mean bankruptcy. The ripple effect is visible. Lenders tighten credit, warranty companies suspend coverage and confidence in the RV marketplace erodes. And as legal documents surface, insiders from within the factories themselves begin leaking proof that the problem was known long before the first lawsuit was filed. If you want real updates before the headlines hit, subscribe now. We're tracking every recall, refund, and VIN correction so you can protect your wallet before it's too late. Inside the factory files, the first leak arrived in an encrypted email sent to a consumer advocate. Attached were internal quality control memos from 2019, stamped confidential, do not circulate. The documents detailed skipped VIN verifications during final assembly to maintain production flow and avoid bottlenecks at end-of-line inspection. Each memo carried signatures from supervisors who now claim ignorance of any compliance issue. Even more alarming were notes from safety auditors warning that missing VINs could compromise traceability in recall events. Those warnings were ignored. A redacted image of one page shows a column labeled VIN confirmation, marked NA, beside hundreds of serial entries. That is the smoking gun. Evidence that the issue was systemic, not accidental. When confronted with the leak, company representatives called it outdated internal correspondence. Yet timestamps prove it was written less than 5 years ago. The signatures are genuine, matching those of current executives still issuing denials today. The same hands that signed off on skipped inspections are now defending their records in public. For owners, that is confirmation of what they suspected all along. This was not an isolated blunder. It was a calculated decision to prioritize speed over legality. And with proof now out in the open, the final act of this story will decide who pays the price. The corporations that built the problem or the consumers left to carry it. PR spin versus reality checks. The day after the leaks surfaced, manufacturers began their damage control. Press releases flooded inboxes with phrases like compliance update and customer reassurance initiative. They promised cooperation with regulators and claimed every affected owner would be contacted. But reality painted a very different picture. While corporate videos showed smiling technicians applying new VIN labels, owners continued reporting detentions at border crossings and title rejections from state motor vehicle offices. The so-called updates often amounted to temporary stickers, still not compliant with federal engraving rules. Many consumers received vague letters inviting them to schedule inspections, with no mention of cost or timeline. To separate spin from truth, owners started comparing notes online. They found that only a fraction of cases were being reviewed, and most fixes required proof of purchase and a factory appointment months away. The press releases said resolution. The receipts showed delay. It is a textbook crisis response. Control the narrative, buy time, and hope outrage fades. But the documents do not lie, and owners now know what compliance really looks like. A stamped frame and verifiable audit trail, not another sticker. As the PR smoke clears, the next battle moves from words to numbers, because fixing the problem costs money, and someone has to pay. Retrofit or recall, the real math. The financial math of repair is staggering. Properly restamping a VIN is not as simple as pressing metal. It requires certification, tooling, and legal oversight. Industry sources estimate an average of $1,200 in labor per unit, plus another $300 in inspection fees. Multiply that by thousands of affected coaches, and the total climbs into tens of millions. Internal cost sheets leaked from one manufacturer list the projected expense at $36 million if a full recall is ordered. To avoid that, companies quietly test cheaper retrofits, adhesive plates, or riveted tags, which still violate federal standards. Owners offered these fixes are right to question them. Accepting an unofficial repair could lock in reduced resale value or void future insurance. The choice becomes cruel. Wait for an official recall and risk months of lost use, or accept a patch and risk permanent depreciation. Regulators are now reviewing whether the cheaper retrofit constitutes compliance or deception. Either way, the invoices are coming due, and accountants know it. As corporations debate cost and compliance, regular owners are taking matters into their own hands, turning outrage into organized action. The consumer counter-move. What began as frustration has turned into a coordinated movement. Owners across the country are filing petitions demanding federal oversight and refunds for proven non-compliance. Advocacy groups host live VN check drives at campgrounds, where volunteers help each other locate and verify frame stamps. Channels that once shared travel tips now share document templates and complaint links. Viewers report hundreds of new submissions to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration within a single week. Some insurance companies, sensing public pressure, have started reinstating conditional coverage for verified units. The mid-video call to action captures this surge perfectly. If you have already checked your VIN, hit the check mark. If you are checking tonight, hit the magnifying glass. That ratio tells us how many owners are protecting themselves before the deadline. The audience responds because the message is not fear, it is empowerment. For once, the community feels seen, and that collective awareness changes everything. And with the movement gaining traction, attention has shifted back to Washington, where the next 30 days could define who pays, who refunds, and who walks away untouched. 30 days to clarity. Federal auditors are now combing through factory records, cross-referencing VIN certificates and production logs. Insiders say a preliminary report is due within 30 days, and depending on its findings, the government could order the largest compliance recall in RV history. For owners, those 30 days are critical. The smart move is preparation. Run your VN through the official National Highway Traffic Safety Administration website. Print the verification report and store it with your title. Next, contact the manufacturer and request a written compliance letter stating where and how your VIN is marked. Finally, keep digital copies of your insurance and purchase documents. These form the paper trail that proves good faith if disputes arise later. Do not wait for headlines to tell you what regulators already know. The timeline is short and the stakes are personal. When the audit drops, it will reveal whose stories were true and whose denials were strategy. In 1 month's time, the industry will face its reckoning, and every owner will see whether their investment remains intact or evaporates in fine print. Because when that report lands, the truth will not just expose who built the problem, it will show who finally took responsibility to fix it. Don't wait until it's too late. Check your VIN, protect your rig, and hit subscribe so you don't miss updates.